Carl, what have you done?
Think anyone will notice? Mr. Carl Jackson.
Carl Jackson was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. After the sudden death of his mother at the age of 11, he moved between LA and Orlando, Florida, trying to find his way in life.
So I'm clearly a Carl Jackson fan.
Carl Jackson.
Carl Jackson.
Carl Jackson.
Although he was introduced to hard work, faith, and family values, as a struggling teen, he wandered down the path of least resistance, finding himself jailed twice. By the grace of God, he attended an evangelical church and found that there was a better way and accepted Jesus Christ as his Savior.
There's just no fake stuff about Carl Jackson.
Now, on the Salem Podcast Network, Carl has launched on a journey to help people of all races and backgrounds to discover facts of America's true past, as well as realize the benefits of utilizing their God-given gifts and talents, which far outweigh any benefit from a government subsidy or program.
It's dangerous out here. Let's roll, Carl.
Can't go fast.
Redeemed, rehabilitated, and real entertaining. This is the Carl Jackson Podcast.
Hey, welcome to the Carl Jackson Show podcast. I'm going to talk to you about something different today. I want to challenge you. It's something I've gone back and forth in my mind over the issue of impeachment when it comes to Joe Biden. And I know this isn't something that let's be honest. The right thing to do, in my opinion, is to impeach Joe Biden. I think that's the right thing to do. I think that he has violated our Constitution. I think he's done it time and time again. Hat tip to AM greatness. I'm going to go through a column, if you'll bear with me, that will explain many of the things that he's done that warrant impeachment. Now, I know many of you are saying, well, listen, we don't want to play that game. We don't want to go tit for tat with the Democrat Party. And I completely understand that argument. And politically speaking, I think that's a very persuasive argument, let's say. But the right thing to do is the right thing to do. And I think we need to start questioning whether or not it is time to impeach Joe Biden and just do the right thing. I'll get to some of the reasons why, as provided in this article, just some reminders of some of the things that we have seen just in the last year under the leadership of Joe Biden. But first, let me get to some of the topics of the day. Zelensky, you guys, I'm sure everyone is aware, President Zelensky, Volodymyr Zelensky of the Ukraine, addressed Congress yesterday, again seeking more help from the U.S. and NATO, and particularly he wanted more planes. I don't think many people are going to. And listen, I've said this time and time again. I believe that Zelensky's best weapon and Ukraine's best weapon is him. I don't mean this in a negative light, but the propaganda by the Ukrainians has been very effective in getting the world to rally behind Ukraine. Not to mention the real life pictures of the war-torn country that you see, the dead bodies piling up, people being displaced from their homes, having to leave their homeland. I think it's 50% or so of the population of Ukraine was born in 1991, or I'm not in 1991, but 1991 forward. So just completely insane. Very young population. These people don't know war. These people don't know tyranny and the way that it exists in Russia. So it's very easy to be sympathetic to Volodymyr Zelensky, to the Ukrainian people, and I think we should. I think we should do everything we personally can to help these people. I do believe that there is a moral obligation for us to help them. However, I do at the same token, I think we have to be extremely wise about it. I don't think we should put boots on the ground. I don't think we should overstretch ourselves into another war, especially in Europe, where we don't need to be. But as let me put it this way. I believe that America is a big brother. I don't believe we're a bully. It doesn't mean that we always do the right thing. You can talk about the biolabs and all that stuff. It doesn't mean that we always do the right thing. But I think oftentimes even liberals have the best of intentions, not the leftists that have unfortunately co-opted the Democrat Party fully, pretty much co-opted the Democrat Party. Not necessarily them, but I think in general, Americans want to do good. Americans want to be good. Americans want to do good for not just ourselves, but for other countries when we can do so. Obviously, we have to question whether or not the Ukrainian war, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, is in our best interest. We also have to keep a lookout on China, because China would want nothing more than for us to get bogged down into a war in Europe, so that we're not paying attention to the Indo-Pacific. So it's much easier, or the Indo-Pacific region. So it's much easier for them to attack Taiwan, right? And get us out of the way. And then if they were to attack Taiwan, obviously we don't have the software, we don't have the chips available for cars, so on, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of the technology that exists today, it would have a serious impact on us. Not to mention that China's influence as a communist country, their influence would continue to spread worldwide, and we don't want to do that. We want to deter the spread of communism. I do believe that's a good thing. I think Dr. Sebastian Gorka has gotten it right. I think there are 4 things that we could do and continue to do, although I think we really need to be quiet about this. I think we need to stop beating our chest. I think that's a really bad idea. And I've done it as well. I've talked about it on my radio show and on this podcast. I think if we're going to send them anything, the Ukrainians, we just need to shut up. We need to shut up. We need to continue to ask Vladimir Putin to come to the negotiating table. We need to do our best to try to facilitate an exit ramp for Vladimir Putin, because I do believe that it's too little too late for Joe Biden and the administration. Obviously, thousands of people dead and gone at this point in time. It's absolutely insane because of our fecklessness. All of this stuff could have been deterred from the get-go. If Biden was tough, this would have never happened, in my opinion. Obviously, and I'll just reiterate, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, I think he provides the perfect balance for those that say, hey, you're a neocon, or those that are like, hey, I totally don't want anything. We'll pray for the Ukrainian people. We don't want anything to do there. I think, again, Dr. Sebastian Gorka offers the good balance, or the perfect balance, if you will. I think all of us right away, it's common sense. Listen, we're buying Russian oil. We're still buying Russian oil, as a matter of fact. I've just found out we're still buying Russian oil. That has not stopped. So that needs to stop immediately. But and then the question is, we need to deregulate here so that we could start drilling right away here. You see prices already just dropping, even here in the United States, simply because we're asking OPEC to drill more, and just the idea that they may help the world out, if you will, by drilling for more oil, because oil is based on the futures market. We're starting to see prices calm down a little bit. Imagine how much more prices would come down, probably go back down to Trump levels, if we say we're taking an all of the above approach right here in the United States. We're not going to make it difficult for the American energy companies to drill for oil, to drill for natural gas right here on our lands. We're going to open up all these federal leasing lands. We're not going to bully these guys. We're not going to bog them down in red tape, so on, etc. You would see the price of gas go down. I mean, just tremendously and pretty quickly, since it's based upon a futures market. A couple of other things that I want to talk about. By the way, I'll be sitting in for Larry Elder a little later today, so I'll get into some of these topics a little more deeply. Russia is mounting losses. This, according to the New York Times, there's more than 7,000 Russian troop deaths as a result of their invasion in Ukraine. If this is true, good. It's as simple as that. I feel bad for some of the troops that may have been misled, if that is indeed true, to invade Ukraine. War is war. It is dirty. It is nasty. It is deadly. It never looks good. And a lot of people are going to be hurt. I can't imagine being in the position that Ukrainians are in right now, when their independent nation was just attacked because Vladimir Putin He has a mission, and I don't believe he intends to stop. So we've got to mount all the pressure possible to make him stop. Sanctions have been good. For the most part anyway. But again, we need to drill, baby, drill right here inside the United States. Biden calls Putin a war criminal, but at first he said he wasn't, and then he came back and said he was. Biden is the epitome of a weak and feckless leader. I think we'd be much better off if he would just shut his mouth. The same is true for Kamala Harris. They just need to shut their mouths and just be offer as little information as possible. At the very least, leave Putin guessing. Even I'm okay with them leaving the media guessing at this point. I think we would be far stronger, or appear far stronger, if Biden does that. So Russia bombed a theater that was filled with families that were taking refuge. The theater was marked. The word child was on either side, written in their language, of course. There were also people bombed that were sitting in a bread line. So Russia isn't doing themselves any favors. The problem is you've got weak leaders in NATO. You got a weak United States president. I don't think Vladimir Putin could care less whether or not. Look how far he's gone. This guy is nearly 70 years old, and he's got a legacy that he wants to leave behind, as twisted and warped as it may be. I don't think he's crazy. This guy just has a purpose of restoring Russia to its days of old grandeur, if you will. Another story. This is very Juicy Smollett. So Juicy Smollett has been released pending an appeal, and this is frustrating. Listen. I get so frustrated with this fake racism stuff and Juicy Smollett. I can't stand Juicy Smollett, but I will have to pray for the guy because he is obviously a phony. He's obviously a narcissist. This is a guy that just needs public attention. All indications are he staged this attack on himself. Just because he wanted a bigger paycheck, he wanted more notoriety in the acting business. And this guy, God knows, he could have started a race war, right? I mean, he could have started just individual acts of violence against Trump supporters. And in fact, as far as we know, he may have. This guy deserves to be in jail. And he deserves to be in jail for more than 150 days. And now I'm not even sure if he'll get to spend 150 days in jail based upon this appeal. Any of the January 6 protesters that are being held as political prisoners, perhaps you should ask your defense attorneys to rename you Jesse Smollett so you can walk free. This guy has done far more damage to the country than any January 6 protester, in my opinion. This is absolutely insane, but this is the left plays, there's a different standard for the left, and we're absolutely seeing that there. His fake outrage in the courtroom, as soon as I saw it, I was like, this guy is just auditioning for his next job or his next role. He wants to be the next Colin Kaepernick. He wasn't, this isn't his hoax. He claimed was because he was black. It was perpetrated against him because he was black and because he was gay. We all know that tons of Trump supporters, if any at all, were never watching the show Empire. Absolutely ridiculous. This fool goes to Subway in the middle of a blizzard. Who does that? Seriously, who does that? It absolutely makes no sense. We know the guy is a fake. We know the guy is a fraud. He's still trying to allege he's innocent. This is the problem. I talked about this yesterday. This issue with defunding the police and saying that America is systemically racist. You have blacks that feel like they can get away with this type of nonsense. But this guy should be spending, in my opinion, he should be spending probably a couple of years in jail just for the damage that he could have caused. Again, race wars. Individual attacks against Trump supporters, perpetuating this narrative that America is systemically racist, just the overwhelming divisiveness, the cost to the city of Chicago. I mean, just all of the investment in media and airtime and so on and so, just a complete and utter fraud. And this guy is unwilling to humble himself. If he were willing to humble himself, I'd say, you know what? make this guy pay his fine, put him in jail for for a short period of time, maybe 6 months or so. Let the guy move on with his life. But he is completely not humbled by the situation. He is a narcissist, and this guy needs to pay the piper. But unfortunately, I'm not so sure that he will anymore. I'm not so sure. I know that he's out on appeal, I'm just not so sure. So this is utterly frustrating. So would you have gotten the same treatment if you had a high-priced attorney? Perhaps you might, but the vast majority of people that had perpetrated a hoax like this on society, with all of the resources behind it and all of the problems that could have been caused, I doubt that you would be walking out of jail today. So if you're like, man, would that be me? No, probably not. Probably not. So Jesse Jackson, he may as well in the same line. Jesse Jackson is a phony too. So Jussie Smollett out on bond. Okay. Did I already say this? I think I did, but going back to the Ukrainian issue, again, the 4 things to do: drill, baby, drill. Arm Ukrainians to the hilt. I don't support the no-fly zones. If any of the European nations or would like to offer planes to the Ukrainians, so be it. But I think we should arm them with everything else possible in order to defend themselves. I don't think we should be talking about it and then provide them intelligence. And another thing that Sebastian Gorka offered, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, was we have troops that are stationed in places around Europe. One place in particular that he mentioned was Germany. They don't need to be there. They can be used. Those troops move to NATO territory to make sure that Putin doesn't go too far, to make him think a second time if he decides to go beyond Ukraine. All right. Now, having said that, let's go into a deep dive. Should we impeach Biden? All right. So hat tip to AM Greatness. Article written by a gentleman by the name of Steve Baldwin, simply entitled Impeach Biden. The question is, should we? Now, I got to be honest with you. I do believe that it is the right thing to do. But just being real, I played this out in my head and I thought, okay, will this damage us politically? And I feel bad that I even question that, because I think the right thing to do is impeach Biden, or even to offer up the 25th Amendment, because it's clear that the guy is not completely there. It's clear that he's not completely there. But the article starts off like this. First off, he says, it wouldn't be tit for tat. Republicans can justify an impeachment based on a host of this administration's policies that clearly violate the Constitution. He goes on to say, within MAGA circles, talk is turning increasingly to impeaching Joe Biden after the midterm elections. That's assuming, of course, the Republicans will retake the House of Representatives, and I do believe they will. Here's something that we do have to consider, and we do have to throw this out there. Will Kamala Harris be the president after midterms? Will Biden walk away? I thought, and I was wrong, I thought that Kamala Harris would be the president before his first year was up. I thought it could even happen as early as 6 months. Now, I understand that the Democrats wanted to make sure that Biden stayed at least until after the midterm. That way, Kamala Harris could be president for 2 years and potentially run twice if she were to win in 2024 and then possibly again in 2028. That's their goal. She's so bad. She's so bad at messaging. She's so horrible at her job. I doubt the Democrats want her to be the candidate. So I think Biden is going to try to hold on as long as he can. But look at the guy. I mean, again, I said this last year, so I could be wrong, but he looks like the Crypt Keeper, and he's starting to act like him. I mean, his cognitive abilities are declining right before our eyes, and it's evident for everyone to see. So the actual removal of the president would require 60 votes from the Senate, and that's the most favorable scenario and it's unlikely that the GOP will pick up more than four Senate seats. So it would require 60 votes. So in the Senate, so some people say, okay, we're not going to win 60 seats. I mean, right now the Senate is split 50-50. Kamala Harris being the deciding vote in major legislation when needed. So theoretically, are we going to pick up that many seats? I'm really doubtful on that when it comes to the Senate. But I do want to make the case that I am leaning towards he should be impeached simply because it is the right thing to do, or have the 25th Amendment imposed on the guy because he simply isn't there. And I know, oh my God, Carl, if we do that, we get Kamala Harris. I go back and forth with this too because she's an absolute and utter disaster. But so is Joe Biden. So one is cognitive and unaware, uninformed and dumb, and the other one is out of his mind, unaware, uninformed and dumb. I don't know that I understand the uproar from the left. If we're going to have a disastrous president, I'd rather have one that at least is in her right mind, to be frank with you. And I know many will disagree with that. I know she would be a disaster, but right now this feckless president in the White House is marching us towards World War III. He's so horrible, and yet we're still buying oil from Russia as we use Russia to work out a new revitalized Iran nuclear deal. That's right. It looks like the talks are resuming. It's revitalized that it may happen. So we may be offering some type of deal to the Iranians. This is insane, and we're using Russia the same time that we're talking about. The same time Biden is calling Vladimir Putin a war criminal. He's using him to negotiate a deal with Iran. This is insane. It can't get more insane than that. All right, let me read you this part of the column. The Democrats used the impeachment process to persuade millions of middle-of-the-road and independent voters that Trump had done something terribly wrong. And of course, the impeachment efforts were frivolous and did not comport with the constitutional requirements for impeachment. But of course, that didn't matter to Democrats. They just wanted to make the arguments. They wanted to scare people away from Trump. And to some degree, it obviously worked. They wanted to sow doubt in the minds of those that were not as well informed, low information voters, as Rush Limbaugh would call them. So it's like, okay, do we go tit for tat? Well, what they did was wrong, but impeaching Biden, I believe, is justified. The column goes on to say the precedent is firmly established thanks to Pelosi, Adam Schiff. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. Let me read this part. So they used the impeachment process to persuade millions of middle of the road and independent voters. Okay, I'm sorry, I did address that part, but. So the precedent is firmly established, thanks to Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff, that Republicans don't need to ground an impeachment effort in petty allegations. We have the real deal Holyfield allegations. I mean, look around you. We'll go through some of the allegations with specificity here. But if there should be any cause for impeachment, it should be cause for Joe Biden to impeach. If anyone ever deserved to be impeached, it is Joe Biden. I know there will be establishment Republicans who will say, listen, do not do this. This is silly to even talk about impeachment, to talk about the 25th Amendment. This is absolutely silly. This is nonsense. Really, when someone is violating our Constitution, I mean, I believe purposely so. In many instances, when that is happening, you're telling me we shouldn't even bring up the subject? We shouldn't even ask the question when our borders are freaking wide open? We shouldn't even ask the question? Oh, Americans left behind in Afghanistan? We shouldn't even ask the question? Whew. Anyway, all right. So again, we have plenty of reasons, I believe, to impeach the president. The column goes on to say, the Republicans could justify an impeachment based on a host of Biden policies that violate the Constitution and are clearly impeachable offenses. This columnist says the GOP has a duty and an obligation to hold Biden accountable, and I do believe that. the more I think on this, I'm like, sometimes when you talk politics or you're political analyst, you sit here and you question. I make tough stances all the time on air, but sometimes I want to win. If we don't win back the House, if we don't win back the Senate, if we don't win the White House in 2024, I think this nation is done. I think this nation is finito. I really do. This is how far the left has been able to take us in 1 year. And you see, they are completely exposed and they don't care. They don't care. One thing I do appreciate as a conservative is that COVID exposed the left for who they are. And we know now that the Democrat Party, as they exist in Washington, D.C., and a lot of the leadership apparatus, if you will, are left-wingers. They're not liberals. We see a few liberals, Joe Manchin, so on, et cetera. Kirsten Sinema pops up here and there. But for the most part, this is a far left-wing radical party. And I think we have an obligation to stop them, especially when they are doing things that are unconstitutional, anti-American, and definitely not in America's best interest, and many times intentionally so. This columnist goes on to say there doesn't need to be a rush to impeach Biden. Hearings should last as long as necessary, even as long as 6 months, so that every American will know about Biden's unprecedented assault on our Constitution and our constitutional rights in time for 2024. Impeachment needs to be used as an educational tool to inform undecided and low information voters about the real criminal nature of the Biden regime. I got to be honest with you. I think the timing would be actually, they can't do it, but I wish they would start making calls for it now. Obviously, they don't run the House, so it's important. It's impossible for it to begin now. But I do believe cause of it should begin. What we're seeing, the attacks, the assault against America from within, is unprecedented. Under the Constitution, impeachable offenses include treason, bribery, and high crimes and misdemeanors. Ted Cruz went on to say, or let me just say this. The last phrase is generally thought to mean an abuse of public trust, such as violating the Constitution and endangering our national security. As Senator Ted Cruz points out, there are, quote, multiple grounds, unquote, to impeach Biden. And here are a few. Refusing to enforce federal immigration laws. Probably the most compelling is the utter lawlessness, this according to Senator Ted Cruz, by President Biden to enforce the border. His decision, again, quoting Ted Cruz, to justify immigration laws, that's probably the strongest grounds right now for impeachment, close quote. I mean, refusing to enforce federal immigration laws. So we have Mexican cartels that are basically running our border policy. China helping the Mexican cartels, shipping in opioids, shipping in fentanyl. We have a fentanyl crisis in America right now, like no one's business. All of this is being imposed upon us by the president of the United States and his administration. This is absolutely insane. And we don't even pay attention to the border anymore. Things have gotten so bad. There's so many stories popping up everywhere. There's so many stories. It's hard to keep focused on any one story, even though they're so detrimental to the United States of America. And the border is certainly one. I mean, how can you? What's the use of borders? We're sending and again. I want to help Ukraine, but it makes no sense to help defend another country when we won't defend our own borders, when we won't close our own borders. We don't know who's coming through that border. We don't know who the getaways are. Those are the people that the Border Patrol agents aren't catching, aren't processing, and we're not sending people back. You're talking about 2 million people, give or take, that crossed our southern border in last year alone. And the numbers this year are trending even higher thus far. It's insane. The columnist goes on. Refusing to enforce federal immigration law has allowed nearly 2 million people, there you go, into the country, including terrorists and criminals who are clearly a threat to the American people. This can certainly be defined as treason, as such policies give aid and comfort to our enemies. It could also be defined as, quote, high crimes and misdemeanors, since allowing certain people to break laws and not others violates the Equal Protection Clause under the 14th Amendment. Moreover, the Biden administration is funding private organizations that assist illegals, helping them to defy deportation laws. Lastly, Biden's effort to covertly move illegal aliens to various states using funds designated for COVID tests surely violates the intent of the law. And I'm in full agreement with this columnist. And also, I got to speak to these people, oftentimes people of faith, Catholic charities predominantly. It seems to be the case, sadly, that many, and listen, I love my Catholic brethren, all right? But some of the leadership within the Catholic Church is cray-cray when it comes to this issue, because many of the illegal aliens are being many Catholic institutions and some of the leaders and churches are helping to facilitate the movement and relocation of illegal immigrants into the United States in the name of compassion. But they don't have compassion on us, the American people. When food is, we're going to have a food shortage. If you're not experiencing it already, actually, we've already seen it. Less food on our shelves, less product in the boxes that you buy typically. Violence. This is all going to impact us. These people aren't assimilating into our country, so they're going to live by their worldview, whatever the worldview was in their country. You know, you can only hope and pray that they are some Christian believers, or some, or people of strong faith. Even though they broke the law, where that's not going to play a part, but we can. That's wishful thinking. That's wishful thinking. Coming here and taking jobs, keeping wages stagnant. Not to mention, we already have inflation. I mean, just insane inflation. And now you have lower income people that have to compete against illegal aliens. And they want to get these people to vote as well. Taking jobs, causing crime. Not all of them, obviously. I'm speaking, I'm just in general here. Oh, man, we're living in a crazy world. Abandoning Americans in Afghanistan. Did you ever think we would do that? Did you think we would abandon Americans? We're not supposed to leave any American behind. That's what our troops are trained to do. Don't leave a man behind. Yet there are estimates out there that there were as many as 9,000 Americans left behind in Afghanistan. American citizens or legal residents, if you will, left behind in Afghanistan. God knows what's happening to them. God knows if they're safe. God knows if they're alive. This is the leader, allegedly, of the free world. That's not impeachable. The borders are impeachable. You could look at any one of these, and any one of these, in my opinion, rise to the level of impeachment. The Biden administration's actions in Afghanistan resulted in a disastrous withdrawal. It was a surrender, in my opinion. They prioritized the evacuation of military personnel before citizens. This occurred even though Biden's State Department was warned well in advance of the impending invasion. And he lied about it. And he blamed. Now, we know the leaders are feckless. We know that Lloyd Austin is a weak leader. We know that General Milley is a weak leader. We know that. But even they had the brains to tell Biden that this wasn't a good idea. And he did it anyway. And he lied about it. I have no respect for these men. Why they did not resign and protest makes no sense to me. Then re-entering the Iran nuclear deal. We're willing to give money to the world's leading sponsor of terrorism. This is unbelievable. Biden's decision Again, going back to the column, to re-enter the Iranian nuclear deal and remove sanctions on the terrorist supporting country will only encourage its development of a nuclear weapon. Moreover, Biden has blocked a slew of congressional investigations into these talks, which indicates Biden is hiding the substance of these discussions. Clearly, this is a threat to our national security, and this reckless action by Biden can also be considered treasonous. Now, again, we're not even involved in the conversation. You're talking about Russia, who Biden claims is committing war crimes, Vladimir Putin, but we're using Russia to help broker a deal with Iran. Now, we're not allowed to go inspect their facilities. The world's leading sponsor of terrorism. We can't even go check their facilities. There is no Iran nuclear deal. They didn't agree to anything. And as you can see, they're running shop. They haven't spoken to Biden. I don't know that they intend to speak to Joe Biden. The same was true for when Barack Obama was trying to, he was so desperate for some type of foreign policy win, and that ignoramus got into this Iranian nuclear deal. Made no sense. The same was true then. We couldn't even send U.S. inspectors, UN inspectors in. They were only allowed to look at facilities and or places that the mullahs of Iran said was okay. And we went along with, what kind of inspection was that? We couldn't just show up and do a random inspection. That was not allowed. So we had to give them a call, let them know we were coming so they could have plenty of time to move material around. This is a joke. This is insane. We're living in the twilight zone. Then lying about Hunter Biden's corrupt deals. So Joe Biden said repeatedly he had nothing to do with Biden's corrupt deals, but we now know he was lying. Hunter Biden's partner, Tony Bobulinski, said Joe Biden was involved with the deals, and numerous documents in Hunter's laptop appear to back up his claims. The Secret Service said they didn't know about Hunter Biden's dirt, and now we're finding out, oh yeah, they did, because there are emails right on his freaking laptop. Weaponizing and politicizing COVID. The Supreme Court struck down Biden's vaccination mandate on private businesses, and he knew the mandate was illegal in the first place. He wasn't even sure that it would happen. And then you have White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki confirmed that, saying that the mandates are, and I quote, not the role of the federal government, but nonetheless, he implemented the unconstitutional mandate regardless on private businesses. And then Biden's agencies, including the Pentagon, have refused to honor religious exemptions to the vaccine, thereby violating the First Amendment rights of many American citizens. Tens of thousands of military personnel will soon be dismissed as a result, greatly jeopardizing America's national security. And I've heard calls to other talk shows and so on. In the argument is always, well, listen, they're part of the military. This is what they sign up. This is what they sign up for. This is a vaccine. They have to take all types of vaccines to keep themselves safe because, you know, they're going to go to different parts of the world and never know what they're going to be exposed to, so on, etc. But this isn't a vaccine. This is a therapeutic. And we know that we've been lied to about the effects of this therapeutic. We know that it's causing damage, and we're just starting to find that out. Everything, according to the John Hopkins report, everything that the left has imposed on us is restriction-wise, as far as COVID is concerned, didn't do a damn thing to lessen the effects of this of the pandemic. Yet we continue with this joke. They continue with this lie. The Biden administration is now creating, check this out, is now creating a database of Americans who have asked for this exemption to, why? I mean, to harass them, obviously. Why would they do that? Simply to harass them. And then they urge big tech to constrict freedom of speech. They urge the president of the United States, in name only, ask big tech to censor speech. This is fascism at its best. Colluding with these major corporations, if you will, big tech, in order to demolish free speech in the United States of America. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Just going against the Constitution because we don't think like Democrats. We actually not like Democrats. sorry, Democrats. I'm sure there's some sensible ones out there. I just hope you show up in the midterm elections and the 2024 elections and vote for Republicans. But urging big tech to constrict freedom of speech. If we don't have freedom of speech, we're not a free nation. If we don't have the Second Amendment to back up that freedom of speech, we're not a free nation. It's really as simple as that. He weaponized the FBI and the Justice Department against parents. That's insane. You guys may recall this. We now know the Biden Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, initiated the effort by urging the National School Board Association to send a letter to the Biden White House demanding they use the Department of Justice to harass parents who object to critical race theory and other woke policies in public schools. So in other words, Biden's Secretary of Education asked for the letter, asked these school board members, I believe it was in Loudoun County, if I'm not mistaken, in Virginia, to send a letter pretending like they were asking for help. It was a preemptive strike by the Biden administration so that they could get involved in local levels in education. Thank God the parents of Virginia spoke back. Glenn Youngkin is now the governor. That backfired on their behinds. But they attempted to weaponize the FBI and the DOJ against parents, even threatening to arrest some that assembled. It goes on to say, the column does, the Justice Department responded by characterizing parents as potential, quote, domestic terrorists, unquote, and sought to use the Anti-Terrorism Patriot Act to investigate them. This is nothing short of a full-scale attack on the constitutional rights of American citizens to assemble and speak freely and petition their government for redress of grievances, and then violating the rights of January 6th protesters. Again, I think the January 6th protesters should just, call themselves Jussie Smollett. Perhaps the judges in that area of the country will allow them to walk free, just as Jussie Smollett did. I know that he's out on bond, but let me break the news to you. It wouldn't surprise me if his appeal is successful. It would not surprise me at all. I'm hoping that it won't be. I think a lot of people have black racism fatigue. I think people are tired of hucksters like Jussie Smollett, otherwise known as Juicy. Thank you, Dave Chappelle. But I think people are just tired of it. And the fact that this guy isn't humble, the fact that this guy's a complete narcissist, the fact that his family, brother, sister coming out, too many black men behind bars, will stop committing doggone crimes, and you won't have to worry about it. This is insane to me. I can't use the word insane enough today. What we're experiencing is, I've been talking about politics, or I've been involved in politics for nearly a decade, if not slightly more, to some extent or another. And it's funny because I did a lot of research in the past, and you look for. You want to be ahead of the curve, right? So you look for trends. You look for, hey, if they do this, the ultimate end game must be this, or we'll end up going here. You look for stuff like that when you're researching. And then to live through it, it's different. I did not expect to feel the way that I do. Where even at times I'm surprised, even though I kind of saw some things coming. It's insane to me. So going back to the column, violating the rights of the January 6th protesters and its overly zealous prosecution of the Capitol protesters, Biden's Justice Department has violated their constitutional rights. On many fronts. The Justice Department is prosecuting people for crimes that weren't committed, arresting people who never entered the Capitol, and have held many citizens in jail for over a year without even a trial. This is a gross violation of the Sixth Amendment, which guarantees citizens a speedy trial, and yet the Justice Department refused to investigate, let alone charge Michael Byrd. This is the reckless Capitol Police lieutenant who shot Ashley Babbitt. And they didn't even investigate the guy. We thought they questioned him. We thought they investigated him. He refused to be. And they just, okay, all right, that's cool. We'll just play this out. We got to make the impeachment hearings personal if we do it. And again, I think that as time goes on, maybe more people will be. This guy does not deserve to be president. Joe Biden does not deserve to be president. He doesn't. He's a total embarrassment. He's a complete and utter disgrace to the office. He is anti-American, in my opinion. Just looking at the borders, obviously, he doesn't believe that we should be a sovereign nation, that this nation should be a come one, come all nation. No nation in the world is dumb enough to do that. Well, we're systemically racist. Shut up. Go travel the world or read or talk to other leaders. There isn't a inch of country that exists around this world or on this planet that has not been involved in some way, shape, or form with slavery. Slavery ended here, and quite frankly, not to excuse any of the evils of slavery, but we had the lowest percentage of slaves that were traded here in the United States compared to the Dutch, Finland, Spain, all of these places, Brazil, Portugal, that overwhelmingly participated in the slave trade, yet you don't hear crickets about that from these social justice warriors. All right, and then he talks about going personal, making your arguments personal. And this is very important. It used to be the motto of my show, Communicating American Exceptionalism to the Common Man. How so? By making politics personal. Republicans, conservatives aren't really good at doing this. I feel like we're getting better with the help of some of these young guns that are coming up. But we're getting much better at this. But it is important that we stay involved in the culture and make arguments personal. The illegal OSHA mandate, the column says, charge could feature Americans fired from their jobs for refusing the jab, right? You want to put a story in front of people. The Afghan debacle could be explained by bringing in people to testify whose family members were left behind. So painful. Americans living near the border could testify about the impact of Biden's illegal policies upon the rule of law, and constitutional experts can explain how such policies violate federal immigration laws. The husband of Ashley Babbitt, Aaron Babbitt, could testify about how his wife was murdered and how he has worked tirelessly to hold the crooked cop responsible. Families of January 6 protesters could describe how their loved ones have been beaten in filthy jail cells while their habeas corpus rights have been trashed. Not to mention, many of these guys don't have a record at all. Consider the man, Matt Perna, that committed suicide. This was a guy who was willing to, I don't even believe he was he was ushered into the Capitol building, if I recall correctly. And then he was arrested. He didn't do anything. He didn't break anything. He didn't do anything illegal while he was inside of the Capitol, but he was hunted down like a dog. He was arrested. He spent over a year going back and forth. They were going to initially he was going to plead to some charge where he was going to spend a very short amount of time in jail, get his sentence over with and done with, move on with his life. Then they started talking about going 20, 25 years. This guy committed suicide. Our Justice Department did that under the leadership of the crypt keeper in the White House, Joe Biden. Sad. The media would have a fit, the columnist says, but they will have a hard time ignoring such testimony, especially since news organizations like Fox, Newsmax, One America News would almost certainly cover the hearings live, gavel to gavel. The first half of Biden's term has done more damage to America, the columnist says, than any administration in history, and all Americans need to know how and why. The MAGA movement needs to grill every GOP congressional candidate this year as to whether they will support the impeachment of Joe Biden. If they won't, then questions need to be raised about the suitability of the candidate. Those were his closing arguments. I'm coming out with my own list of things that Republicans need to do. I've mentioned some of the things on air. My time has just been insane right now, but I need to come out with that list. I will be coming out with that list. I've already done done an outline, basically a rough draft, but I really want to make it really emphatically clear when it's published. So we'll get that out to you. But anyway, this is a compelling argument to impeach Biden. I think the question has to be, is it just time to do the right thing? This is the worst president, undoubtedly in modern history, and perhaps the worst president ever. And oftentimes you can argue with credibility whether or not it's whether what he's doing is on purpose. And honestly, you can't look at the borders. 2 million people crossing our southern border and say that is not intentional. They've done nothing to slow the Biden administration, nothing to slow illegal immigration, abandoning Afghanistan. They don't even talk about it anymore. They don't want you to remember it. They're hiding fascist Fauci. They don't want him to be seen because they don't want you to remember all of the restrictions that they imposed on you that violated your civil liberties over a 2-year span, 2 weeks to 2 years. And they still want to keep some of this crap going. Working with big tech to silence you, to shut you up. These big tech people are evil too. I'm sorry. I've never used that word so loosely. I try to be careful. I try to be guarded when I use this word. How would you describe it? What's being done to us as American citizens is evil, and it's being done to us by the Biden administration and the leftists that he has allowed. And, you know, we talk about all these organizations, demand justice, so on, etc., and they are a part of running the White House, but he's still the head. He has to allow it. Or those that are in his close circle, Jill Biden. It's a sick world that we're living in. So, guys, anyway, I'll wrap up for today. I'm going to go and do some more prepping for the Larry Elder Show. But I appreciate you tuning in today. Make sure you please subscribe to the podcast everywhere podcasts are found. You can find us on Apple. You can find us on Google, Spotify, YouTube. Make sure you click the bell. Rumble. Our Facebook page is Carl Jackson Radio. We're on Twitter at Carl Jackson Show. We're on Parler at Carl Jackson Show. Getter, Carl Jackson Show. So please subscribe to those pages. Please like and share what we have to say. We continue to stay. We will stay in the fight for freedom alongside you, but we need your help to make sure that we spread the message. And anyway, guys, I love you. Appreciate you tuning in. Until next time, don't grow weary doing good, and God bless you.